the courtroom is a kingdom, and Prosecutor Julian Vance is its enthroned king. He sits not at the bench, but at the prosecution's table, a space he has transformed into a throne room of his own making. The wood is dark, polished to a mirror shine, reflecting the distorted image of a man who sees only his own greatness. His suit is a whisper of expensive silk, tailored so precisely it seems less like clothing and more like a second, more perfect skin. He is a man carved from ambition and tailored by contempt. His eyes, the color of a winter sky, sweep across the gallery. They are not the eyes of a public servant seeking justice. They are the eyes of a predator scanning his territory, cataloguing the weak, dismissing the insignificant. He thrives in this air, thick with the scent of fear and cheap polyester. It is the perfume of his power. Today, his gaze settles on the defendant's table, and a smile, thin and sharp as a shard of glass, touches his lips. There sits Marcus Thorne. To the world, to this courtroom, to the king on his makeshift throne, Marcus is nothing. He is a ghost in a threadbare jacket, a man whose silence is mistaken for simplicity, whose stillness is read as defeat. He is a black man in a system that was not built for him, a veteran in a society that thanks him with platitudes and forgets him with ease. His shoulders are slumped, not from the weight of the charges against him, but from a weariness that has settled deep into his bones, a fatigue born in the dust of a land thousands off miles away. At his feet lies the other defendant, the supposed weapon in this farcical drama. Ghost. A Belgian Malinois, his coat the color of sable and shadow. He lies perfectly still, a sphinx of loyalty and discipline. His head rests on his paws, but his eyes, intelligent and amber, never leave Marcus. They are a silent conversation, a language of shared trauma and unwavering trust that no one else in this sterile room could ever hope to understand. The dog is a portrait of calm, an island of serenity in an ocean of institutional malice. Prosecutor Vance rises. The movement is fluid, practiced, a performance he has honed over hundreds of cases just like this one. He is not just a lawyer, he is a conductor, and this courtroom is his orchestra. Today, he intends to play a symphony of ruin. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, his voice booms, a rich, condescending baritone that fills every corner of the room. It is a voice accustomed to being obeyed, a voice that has shattered lives with a carefully chosen phrase. We are here today for a simple reason. Public safety. He pauses, letting the words hang in the air, heavy and ominous. We are here because the defendant, Marcus Thorne, chose to unleash a dangerous, vicious animal in a public park. An animal he claims, Vance's lip curls into a sneer, is a service dog. He practically spits the words, as if they are a foul taste in his mouth. He turns his body, a subtle shift that puts Marcus and Ghost directly in his line of fire, making them the focal point of the jury's attention. Look at it, Vance commands, gesturing with a dismissive wave of his hand. A trained killer, masquerading as a therapy pet. A prop, used by a man who is clearly unstable, a man who resists arrest, a man who assaults a decorated officer of the law simply for doing his job. Marcus does not react. He continues to stare straight ahead, his gaze fixed on some distant point beyond the courtroom walls. His hands rest on his knees, steady and calm. Inside him, a storm rages, a tempest of memory and fury held in check by a will of iron. He can still feel the phantom sting of the officer's condescension, the coarse scrape of the cuffs on his wrists, the sickening thud as the taser prongs hit Ghost. But on the outside, he is a statue of placid endurance. Vance mistakes this control for emptiness. It is a fatal error, the first of many. Officer Miller, Vance calls, his voice softening into a tone of theatrical respect. Please, tell the court what happened. Officer Derek Miller swaggers to the stand. He is a man built of brutish angles and cheap authority, his uniform stretched tight over a body swollen with pride and donuts. He moves with the unearned confidence of a man who has never been truly challenged, a bully who has always had the bigger stick. He settles into the witness box, a smirk playing on his lips. He looks at Marcus, a flicker of contempt in his eyes. He sees a target. An easy win. I was on patrol in Westside Park, Miller begins, his voice a gravelly monotone that he thinks sounds official. I observed the defendant and his animal. The dog was not on a leash, it was intimidating parkgoers. It's a pit bull mix, a dangerous breed. A lie. Ghost is a purebred Malinois, and he was on a leash, lying peacefully at Marcus's feet. But in this kingdom, Miller's word is gospel, and Marcus's is heresy. Sarah Jenkins, the public defender, rises tentatively. She is young, her suit ill-fitting, her face a mask of earnest anxiety. She is a true believer drowning in a sea of cynics. Objection, Your Honor. A Belgian Malinois is not a pit bull. The officer is mischaracterizing the animal. The judge, a man named Wallace who owes his position on the bench entirely to Julian Vance's political maneuvering, waves a dismissive hand. Overruled. Let the officer continue. Wallace is a puppet, and Vance is pulling the strings. Vance gives Sarah a look of pitying disdain, the look a wolf might give a lamb. Miller continues, emboldened. I approached the defendant to inform him of the park ordinance. He became immediately hostile. Belligerent. Started yelling about his rights, calling me names. He was aggressive. Another lie. Marcus had been silent, respectful, even as Miller's questions grew more pointed, more insulting. He claimed it was a service dog. Miller scoffs. I asked for his papers, his certification. He had none. Just a vest he probably bought online. It's a common scam. These people try to take their vicious pets everywhere, claiming they're disabled. The phrase "these people" hangs in the air, thick and poisoned. And what happened next, officer? Vance prompts, his voice a gentle guide leading the witness down a well-rehearsed path of perjury. When I tried to issue a citation, he ordered the dog to attack me, Miller says, his voice rising with feigned alarm. The animal lunged, snarling, teeth bared. I had no choice but to deploy my taser to subdue it. For my own safety. Then the defendant assaulted me as I was attempting to place him under arrest. The courtroom murmurs. The jury, a collection of faces already hardened by Vance's opening statement, lean forward. They see a hero cop and a dangerous vagrant. The narrative is set. The trap is sprung. Marcus finally moves. He reaches down, his hand gently stroking Ghost's head. The dog lets out a soft whine, a sound of pure devotion. It is the only defense offered. Vance sees the gesture and pounces. Let the record show the defendant is attempting to comfort the animal, the very weapon he used to attack a police officer. No remorse. None. He turns to face the jury, his arms spread wide. The city asks for justice. It asks for this man to be held accountable, and for this dangerous animal to be dealt with appropriately. Permanently. The final word is a death sentence, delivered with the casual cruelty of a man swatting a fly. In the silence that follows, only one sound can be heard. The soft, steady breathing of a man and his dog, waiting for a war they did not start, but one they fully intend to finish. The trial grinds on, a slow, methodical demolition of Marcus Thorne's character. Vance is a master architect of ruin. He calls a parade of witnesses, each one adding another brick to the wall of lies he is building around Marcus. A woman from the park, her face a pinched mask of suburban fear, testifies that Ghost looked wild and unpredictable. She neglects to mention she was 50 yards away and that her own yapping poodle was the only creature making any noise. An animal control officer, a man with a sour disposition and a grudge against the world, declares that any dog of Ghost's size and breed is inherently dangerous. He speaks of bite statistics and jaw pressure, painting a picture of a four-legged monster. He does not mention Ghost's impeccable training records, which Sarah Jenkins had tried to submit as evidence but were deemed irrelevant by Judge Wallace. The system is a closed loop, a snake eating its own tail, and Marcus is trapped in its coils. Sarah Jenkins does her best. She is a flickering candle in a hurricane. She cross-examines with a trembling voice, pointing out inconsistencies, highlighting the lack of evidence. But for every question she asks, Vance has an answer, a sneer, a performance of outrage that sways the jury back to his side. He objects constantly, cutting her off, making her seem flustered and incompetent. Counselor, Judge Wallace sighs with exaggerated patience after another of Sarah's attempts is shut down. Are you going somewhere with this, or are you just wasting the court's time? The gallery titters. Sarah's face flushes with shame. She sits down, defeated. Marcus watches her, and for the first time, a flicker of something other than calm crosses his face. It is a quiet empathy. He knows what it is to be outgunned, to be surrounded, to fight a battle you are destined to lose. Vance decides it is time to escalate. It is time to break the defendant completely. He approaches the defendant's table, his movements slow and predatory. He leans in, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper that is still loud enough for the jury to hear. Mr. Thorne. I am a reasonable man. It is perhaps the most audacious lie he has told yet. I am willing to offer you a deal. A final chance to show some semblance of remorse for your actions. He straightens up, addressing the judge but looking at Marcus. The state is prepared to drop the charge of assaulting an officer. We will reduce the resisting arrest to a misdemeanor. 2 years probation. Anger management classes. It sounds almost generous. A lifeline. But then comes the poison. In exchange, Vance continues, his voice hardening, Mr. Thorne will plead guilty to owning a dangerous animal. He will surrender the dog to the city for humane euthanasia. Humane euthanasia. The words are a clinical cruelty, a sterile mask on a monstrous act. Sarah Jenkins jumps to her feet. Your Honor, that's outrageous. Ghost is a certified service animal, he is not dangerous. He is a weapon, counselor, and the city has a right to protect itself, Vance retorts, not even bothering to look at her. His eyes are locked on Marcus. He is waiting for him to break. He is expecting begging, pleading, crying. He has seen it 100 times before. It is the part he enjoys the most. Marcus Thorne says nothing. He simply shakes his head, a slow, deliberate movement. No. The single, silent word echoes in the space between them louder than any shout. Vance's face tightens. The mask of civility slips, revealing the raw, ugly arrogance beneath. He did not expect this defiance. He is not accustomed to it. I see, Vance says, his voice dripping with ice. You refuse. You would rather risk years in prison than part with your precious pet. He turns to the jury. You see the defendant's priorities, ladies and gentlemen. He values this beast over public safety, over the rule of law, over his own freedom. He stalks back to his table, his rage a palpable force. The deal was not an act of mercy. It was a test of his power. And Marcus had failed it. Now, there will be no more pretenses. Now, there will only be destruction. The day ends. Marcus is led back to a holding cell, Ghost taken to a separate cage in the courthouse basement, a place reserved for animals deemed too dangerous for the city shelter. As the bailiff separates them, Ghost whines, a low, mournful sound that cuts through Marcus like a knife. Marcus kneels, pressing his forehead against the dog's. I know, boy, he whispers. I know. It's all right. I'm right here. In his cell, Marcus sits on the cold, metal bunk. The silence is a physical weight. For years, the only thing that has kept the screaming nightmares at bay is the warm, solid presence of Ghost beside him, the gentle rhythm of his breathing, the wet nose nudging his hand in the dark. Tonight, he is alone with his ghosts. The real ones. The next morning, the air in the courtroom is even colder. Vance arrives with a new fire in his eyes. The fire of a man whose authority has been questioned, a king whose decree has been ignored. He is no longer interested in a simple conviction. He wants annihilation. He decides to put Marcus on the stand. It is a risky move for a prosecutor, but Vance is supremely confident. He believes he can shatter Marcus's stoic facade with a few well-aimed blows. Marcus takes the stand. He moves with a quiet dignity that seems to infuriate Vance even more. Mr. Thorne, Vance begins, circling the witness box like a shark. You are a veteran, is that correct? Yes, Marcus says. His voice is quiet but clear. And you served in Afghanistan? Yes. And you claim to suffer from PTSD. Vance says the acronym as if it is a made-up ailment, a convenient excuse. Yes. And this condition is why you need this animal. He helps me, Marcus says simply. Vance laughs, a short, ugly bark. He helps you. Or do you use him as an excuse? An intimidating accessory to keep people at a distance. A shield for your own antisocial behavior. Objection. Sarah cries out. Counsel is badgering the witness. Sustained, Judge Wallace says, though his tone is bored, perfunctory. Get to the point, Mr. Vance. Vance leans forward, placing his hands on the witness box, invading Marcus's space. His voice drops to a venomous hiss. Let's talk about your service, Mr. Thorne. We have your record. An honorable discharge. Commendations. But what does that really mean? He straightens up, turning to the jury. These days, they hand out medals like candy. Participation trophies for a war we didn't even win. What did you really do over there, Thorne? Sit behind a desk. Drive a truck. Marcus's jaw clenches, a tiny, almost imperceptible movement. The storm inside him is growing, the waves crashing higher against the walls of his control. Vance sees the flicker of emotion and presses his advantage. This is the moment. The breaking point. He leans in again, his face inches from Marcus's. I'll tell you what I think. I think you're a coward. I think you came back broken and you want the world to feel sorry for you. Men like you hide behind dogs because you were cowards over there. You hid in a bunker while real heroes fought and died. Tell me, Thorne. What did you really do? The question hangs in the dead air of the courtroom. It is the line. The moral event horizon. The one step too far. The prosecutor has not just attacked Marcus Thorne, the defendant. He has desecrated the memory of the fallen. He has spat on the sacrifice of soldiers. He has crossed from legal aggression into something sacrilegious. And in that moment, something in Marcus Thorne shifts. The storm does not break. It recedes. It becomes something else entirely. A calm, cold, terrifying certainty. The weariness in his eyes is replaced by a light, hard and brilliant as a diamond. He looks at Julian Vance. And for the first time, he truly sees him. Not as a prosecutor, not as a king in his courtroom, but as a small, pathetic man, puffed up with an arrogance he has not earned. Marcus does not answer the question. He doesn't need to. Because at that exact moment, at the back of the courtroom, the heavy oak doors swing open with a resounding boom that echoes like a cannon shot. Every head in the room snaps toward the sound. Framed in the doorway stands a woman. She is not tall, but she commands the space as if she were a giant. Her suit is a severe, elegant black, a stark contrast to the room's faded beige. Her hair is silver, cut in a sharp, modern style. Her face is etched with an intelligence and authority that makes Julian Vance's manufactured power look like a child's costume. She is flanked by two men, both dressed in dark, conservative suits. They do not look like lawyers. They look like men who could dismantle a car with their bare hands, or a legal case with a single phone call. The woman's eyes, a piercing, intelligent blue, scan the room. They pass over the jury, the judge, the prosecutor, and finally come to rest on Marcus Thorne. A subtle, almost imperceptible nod passes between them. She strides forward, her heels clicking on the marble floor with the rhythmic finality of a ticking clock counting down to zero. The entire courtroom holds its breath. This is an intrusion, a violation of the established order. This is not supposed to happen. She stops directly in front of the prosecution's table, placing a sleek leather briefcase down with a soft, definitive thud. Julian Vance finds his voice first. It is laced with outrage. Who are you? This is a closed court. Bailiff, remove this woman. Judge Wallace, jolted from his stupor, bangs his gavel. Order. I will have order. Ma'am, you are in contempt. Identify yourself immediately. The woman smiles, a cool, unbothered expression. She turns to face the bench, her gaze so direct and powerful that Judge Wallace visibly flinches. My apologies for the interruption, Your Honor, she says, her voice calm and clear as a bell, yet carrying an unmistakable undertone of steel. My name is Evelyn Reed. The name means nothing to most in the room. But Julian Vance's face drains of all color. His jaw goes slack. He looks as though he has seen a ghost. A very expensive, very dangerous ghost. Evelyn Reed. Senior partner at Reed, Callaway and Finch. A law firm that didn't represent people. They represented empires. Tech billionaires, international conglomerates, sovereign wealth funds. Their hourly billing rate was higher than the judge's annual salary. They did not handle petty assault charges in local courthouses. They handled cases that shifted global markets and rewrote national laws. And I, Evelyn Reed continues, her voice dropping slightly, each word a perfectly polished stone, am now lead counsel for the defense. A collective gasp ripples through the courtroom. Sarah Jenkins stares, her mouth agape. This is the legal equivalent of a nuclear submarine surfacing in a public swimming pool. Vance stammers, his carefully constructed composure shattering into 1,000 pieces. You can't. The defendant already has counsel. This is a mockery. On the contrary, Mr. Vance, Evelyn says, turning her cool gaze on him. The mockery is what has been happening in this room up until this very moment. And it is over. Now. She slides a document across the table to the stunned court clerk. My notice of appearance. Signed by my client, Mr. Marcus Thorne, this morning. Judge Wallace fumbles with the paper, his hands shaking. He looks from the document to Evelyn, then to Vance, his face a mess of confusion and burgeoning panic. His master is losing control, and the puppet does not know what to do. This is highly irregular. He begins weakly. These are highly irregular circumstances. Evelyn cuts him off, her tone leaving no room for argument. My client has been subjected to a malicious prosecution, a gross miscarriage of justice, and a level of prosecutorial misconduct that I intend to see results in a federal investigation. The threat hangs in the air, electric and deadly. The power in the room has not just shifted. It has undergone a seismic reversal. The magnetic poles have flipped. Julian Vance, the king, is suddenly a terrified court jester. His throne room has become a cage. He looks at Marcus, truly looks at him for the first time, and sees not a broken veteran, but an enigma, a man connected to a power he cannot comprehend. Who was this man? How could he possibly afford Evelyn Reed? Evelyn turns to Sarah Jenkins and gives her a brief, kind smile. You did admirably, counselor, with the meager resources you were afforded. My team will take it from here. Please, join us at the table. Sarah, looking dazed, nods and moves to the chair Evelyn's associate pulls out for her. Evelyn Reed then turns her full attention back to the bench. Your Honor, I am requesting an immediate recess for 2 hours so that I may confer with my client and review the travesty of a case file. After which, I will be filing a motion for immediate dismissal of all charges with prejudice. And then, we will discuss sanctions. The word sanctions hits Vance like a physical blow. Sanctions meant fines, official reprimands, a black mark on a career he had so meticulously crafted. It was the beginning of the end. Judge Wallace, seeing the tidal wave coming, can do nothing but try to get out of its way. Recess granted, he mumbles, banging his gavel with a weak, defeated tap. As the courtroom begins to clear, a buzz of shocked whispers filling the air, Vance remains frozen at his table. His world has tilted on its axis. The predator has suddenly, inexplicably, found himself in the snare. Evelyn Reed walks over to the witness stand where Marcus still sits. He looks up at her, the hard light in his eyes softening slightly. I'm sorry it took so long, Marcus, she says quietly, her professional armor momentarily gone, replaced by a genuine warmth. The traffic from the airfield was terrible. You're right on time, Evelyn, Marcus replies, his voice steady. He stands, and for the first time since the trial began, he looks directly at Julian Vance. There is no anger in his eyes. No hatred. There is only a profound, chilling pity. The look says everything. You picked the wrong man. You made the biggest mistake of your career. And now, you are going to pay for it. 2 hours later, the courtroom reassembles. The atmosphere has changed completely. The air, once thick with Vance's smug authority, is now crackling with a new kind of tension. It is the electric hum of impending doom. Julian Vance is back at his table, but he is a different man. The swagger is gone. His face is pale, his hands tremble slightly as he shuffles papers that he is not actually reading. He has spent the last 2 hours on the phone, calling in every favor, trying to understand what is happening. Every door has been slammed in his face. The name Evelyn Reed is a key that locks everything down. Evelyn Reed stands at the defense table, a picture of serene, lethal competence. Her 2 associates are setting up a large monitor and a projector, their movements efficient and precise. Sarah Jenkins sits beside her, watching with a mixture of awe and disbelief. Marcus is back in his chair, Ghost once again at his feet. But now, his stillness seems different. It is not the stillness of endurance, but the stillness of a coiled spring, of immense power held in reserve. Court is now in session, Judge Wallace announces, his voice lacking its earlier conviction. He looks nervous, his eyes darting between Evelyn and Vance. Mr. Vance, does the prosecution have anything further? He asks, almost pleadingly, as if hoping Vance will simply give up and end the nightmare. Vance, driven by the last vestiges of his pride, stands. Yes, Your Honor. The prosecution rests its case, he says it with a bravado he does not feel. It is the last defiant roar of a dying lion. Very well, Wallace says, relieved. Miss Reed, the defense may proceed. Evelyn rises. Thank you, Your Honor. The defense would like to begin by calling a new witness to the stand. Officer Ryan Peterson. A side door opens and a uniformed police officer walks in. He is young, his face etched with anxiety. He avoids looking at Officer Miller, who is sitting in the gallery, his face turning a blotchy red. This is Miller's former partner. Vance leaps to his feet. Objection. The defense did not disclose this witness. The defense was not aware of this witness until 2 hours ago, Evelyn counters smoothly. When he contacted my office directly after suffering a crisis of conscience. Surely the prosecution is not afraid of hearing more of the truth. The jab hits its mark. Overruled, Wallace says quickly. Let the witness testify. Peterson takes the stand, his hands clasped tightly in front of him. Officer Peterson, Evelyn begins, her voice gentle but firm. You were Officer Miller's partner for 2 years, is that correct? Yes, ma'am. And during that time, did you ever witness Officer Miller exhibit a bias against certain individuals? Objection. Leading. Vance shouts, his voice cracking. I'll rephrase, Evelyn says calmly. Officer Peterson, please describe Officer Miller's policing style. Peterson takes a deep breath. Derek, he targets people. People of color, homeless folks, anyone he thinks is an easy target. He calls it proactive policing, but it's just bullying. He likes to push people until they snap, then arrest them for it. A wave of murmurs sweeps the room. Miller looks like he wants the floor to swallow him whole. And did he ever fabricate details in his reports? Evelyn asks. All the time, Peterson says, the words rushing out now. He'd say someone was resisting when they weren't. He'd add details to justify use of force. He taught me how to do it. He said it was how you win on the street. Thank you, officer. Now, I'd like to talk about the day of Mr. Thorne's arrest. Were you on duty? No, I was on vacation. But Derek called me that night. He was bragging about it. Bragging. What did he say? He said he put some homeless vet in his place. He laughed about tossing the dog. He said the guy was so calm it was making him mad, so he decided to give him something to cry about. He said it would be an easy conviction that would look good on his record. Vance is on his feet, his face purple with rage. Objection. Hearsay. This is a disgruntled employee with an axe to grind. Oh, I agree, Mr. Vance, Evelyn says, a dangerous glint in her eye. We shouldn't rely on hearsay. We should rely on direct evidence. She nods to one of her associates. He presses a button. The large monitor flickers to life. The prosecution and the police department claimed that Officer Miller's body camera footage from the incident was corrupted and unrecoverable, Evelyn announces to the court. Fortunately, my firm's digital forensics team is exceptionally talented. The video begins. It is clear, high definition. It shows Marcus sitting peacefully on a park bench, ghost-leashed and lying at his feet. It shows Officer Miller approaching, his posture immediately aggressive. The audio is pristine. Miller's voice, this dog a pit bull. You can't have pit bulls here. Marcus's voice, calm and polite, he's a Belgian Malinois, officer. And he's my service animal. Miller's voice, dripping with sarcasm, oh, a service animal, right. Let me see your papers. Let me see your disability card. What's your disability? Are you sad? The jury flinches. The cruelty is blatant, undeniable. The video continues, showing Miller escalating, poking Marcus in the chest, calling him a freeloader. It shows Marcus remaining perfectly still, his hands in plain sight. It shows Ghost simply moving to stand between them, not growling, not lunging, just creating a barrier. And then it shows Miller drawing his taser. "Get that thing back, or I'll light it up." The video shows Marcus trying to calm the situation, trying to pull Ghost back, but Miller fires anyway. The sickening sound fills the room. The dog yelps in pain. The final seconds of the footage show Marcus kneeling to check on his dog, his back to Miller. It shows Miller tackling him from behind and wrenching his arms to cuff him. There is no assault. No resistance. Just a brutal, unprovoked attack. Evelyn stops the video. The silence in the courtroom is absolute. It is the silence of a tomb. Julian Vance has collapsed into his chair. His face is the color of ash. He looks at the jury, and for the first time in his career, he sees not admiration or intimidation, but pure, unadulterated disgust. The video speaks for itself, Evelyn says quietly. It shows a decorated officer committing perjury. It shows the prosecution building its entire case on a foundation of lies. She pauses, letting the weight of the revelation settle. But I am not finished. She looks toward Marcus. Mr. Vance, in his zeal, chose to attack not only my client's character, but the nature of his military service. He called him a coward. She turns to Marcus. "Mr. Thorne, would you please take the stand again?" Marcus walks back to the witness box. The entire room is now focused on him, not with suspicion, but with a dawning sense of awe and shame. "Mr. Thorne," Evelyn says, her voice now filled with a deep, profound respect. "Prosecutor Vance asked you a question before we recessed. He asked what you really did over there. I believe the court deserves an answer." Marcus looks at the jury, at the judge, and finally, at Julian Vance. "Mr. Thorne," Evelyn prompts gently. "Would you be willing to show the court your service?" Marcus nods. He turns slightly in the witness box, unbuttoning his worn shirt. He shrugs it off his shoulders. A collective gasp, sharp and horrified, fills the courtroom. His torso is a devastating landscape of healed wounds. A geography of sacrifice. A massive, puckered scar dominates his chest, a sunburst of damaged flesh where a surgeon's knife fought a desperate battle against death. His back is a crosshatch of dozens of smaller, jagged scars, the telltale signature of shrapnel. One shoulder is a knotted mass of tissue, rebuilt but forever ruined. It is the body of a man who has walked through fire and somehow, miraculously, survived. Evelyn Reed nods to her associate again. The monitor flickers, and a new image appears. It is a photograph of a much younger Marcus, in full combat gear, in the middle of a dusty, war-torn village. At his side is a younger Ghost, alert and powerful. "This," Evelyn says, her voice ringing with pride, "is Sergeant Marcus Thorne and his military working dog, Ghost, in the Korangal Valley, Afghanistan. A place some have called the Valley of Death." Another image appears. It is a heavily redacted, declassified military document. Evelyn reads from it. On October 14, 2012, Sergeant Thorne's platoon was caught in a complex ambush. Pinned down by heavy machine gun and RPG fire. The initial blast incapacitated their platoon leader and radio operator. Her voice is steady, but it carries the weight of the story. For 6 hours, Sergeant Thorne single-handedly coordinated the defense, moving between positions under heavy fire to treat the wounded and redistribute ammunition. He exposed himself to enemy fire on 7 separate occasions to draw it away from his pinned-down men. She clicks to the next slide. A diagram of the battlefield. When an enemy grenade landed in the makeshift triage station where 4 critically wounded soldiers lay, Sergeant Thorne covered it with his own body. The air is stolen from the room. The scars on Marcus's chest and back suddenly have a story. A story of unimaginable bravery. He survived, Evelyn continues, her voice thick with emotion. But that is not the whole story. Because the only reason anyone in that platoon survived the initial ambush is because of Ghost. A new photo. Ghost, younger, with a bloody bandage wrapped around his flank. Ghost detected the ambush seconds before it was sprung. His alert allowed the platoon to take cover, saving at least a dozen lives. He then took 2 bullets that were meant for Sergeant Thorne. And despite his own wounds, he dragged a wounded soldier, a man who weighed 200 pounds, out of the line of fire and into cover. The courtroom is silent, save for the sound of a juror openly weeping. Sergeant Marcus Thorne was awarded the Distinguished Service Cross for his actions, Evelyn states. It was recommended for the Medal of Honor, but the paperwork was lost in military bureaucracy. He never complained. He never asked for anything. He just came home, broken in body but not in spirit, with the dog that saved his life, and tried to live in peace. She turns off the monitor. This is the man you called a coward, she says, her voice a low, furious whisper directed at Julian Vance. This is the hero you and your pet officer chose to torment. This is the service dog you sentenced to death. Vance is no longer looking at anyone. He is staring at his hands, his entire body trembling. His kingdom has not just fallen. It has been vaporized. His career, his reputation, his very identity, has been incinerated in the blaze of Marcus Thorne's quiet heroism. But Evelyn Reed is not done. There must be a final nail. A final, undeniable blow. I have one last piece of evidence, Your Honor, she says, her voice returning to its cool, clinical precision. It is an audio recording. It was provided by Officer Peterson, who, fearing for his career and his safety, began recording his conversations with Officer Miller. She presses a button on a small device on the table. The speakers crackle. And then, Officer Miller's voice, smug and ugly, fills the room. Miller's voice, and then Vance says to me, make sure the report is solid. No holes, I told him, don't worry, I know how to handle these guys. By the time I'm done, the jury will think he's a monster and the dog is Cujo. A new voice joins in. A familiar, booming, condescending baritone. Julian Vance. Vance's voice, laughing, excellent. This is perfect. A quick, high-profile conviction. Makes me look tough on crime, clears another vagrant off the streets. Just stick to the story. The dog lunged, you feared for your life. The vet assaulted you. Simple. His public defender is a child. She won't know what hit her. We'll railroad him so fast his head will spin. The recording continues. It is a tapestry of conspiracy, racism, and blatant corruption. They mock Marcus's PTSD. They use slurs. They laugh about having Ghost put down. It is the sound of two men digging their own graves, utterly confident that no one is listening. Evelyn stops the recording. She turns to face Julian Vance. Her expression is not triumphant. It is one of cold, righteous fury. Mr. Vance, she says, her voice echoing in the stunned silence. Do you have any response to that? Julian Vance looks up. His eyes are wide with sheer, animal panic. He opens his mouth, but no sound comes out. He is a man completely and utterly broken. His arrogance, his power, his entire world, all gone, turned to dust. Two figures detach from the back wall of the courtroom. They are dressed in dark suits, their demeanor professional and grim. They are not Evelyn's associates. They are FBI agents. They walk directly to the prosecution's table. One of them places a hand on Julian Vance's shoulder. Julian Vance, you are under arrest for conspiracy to deprive a citizen of his civil rights, perjury, and obstruction of justice. Vance makes a small, choked sound, a pathetic whimper. The king has been dethroned. Another pair of agents approach a sputtering, terrified Officer Miller in the gallery. He is cuffed and read his rights, his face a mask of disbelief. In the midst of the chaos, Evelyn Reed walks to the witness stand. She offers Marcus his shirt. He takes it, his hand steady, and puts it back on, covering the roadmap of his sacrifice. He stands up and walks from the witness box, his ordeal finally over. He kneels down and wraps his arms around Ghost, burying his face in the dog's thick fur. Ghost licks his face, his tail thumping a steady, happy rhythm against the floor. Marcus looks up, his eyes meeting Evelyn's. He says nothing. He doesn't need to. Evelyn then turns her gaze back to the scene at the prosecutor's table. She watches as Vance, the man who commanded this room with such venomous pride, is handcuffed. He looks small now, pathetic, his expensive suit rumpled, his face slick with sweat. As they lead him away, his eyes, wild with desperation, lock onto Marcus. Marcus simply looks back at him, his expression calm and unreadable. Evelyn leans over to her client. I needed him to go this far, she says, her voice barely a whisper. I needed the world to see how men like him treat people when they think no one is watching. When they think their victim has nothing and no 1 inch. Marcus nods, stroking Ghost's head. He looks at the pathetic figure of Julian Vance being led from the room, stripped of his power, his dignity, his freedom. The kingdom has fallen. And a quiet man and his loyal dog are the ones left standing in the ruins. The fallout is not a storm. It is a tidal wave. It scours the city's justice system, washing away decades of corruption in a cleansing flood. The arrest of a high-profile prosecutor and a police officer in open court becomes a national scandal. Julian Vance, stripped of his power and his allies, is a man adrift in a sea of his own making. Facing an ironclad federal case, he pleads guilty. His sentence is 20 years in a federal prison with no possibility of parole. He is disbarred, his name erased from the halls of power he once stalked. His assets are seized to help pay the massive civil settlement awarded to Marcus Thorne. He trades his tailored suits for a drab prison jumpsuit, his courtroom kingdom for a 6-by-9-foot cell. His booming voice is lost in the cacophony of the prison block, just another forgotten man shouting at the ghosts of his own arrogance. Officer Derek Miller receives a similar fate. He is sentenced to 15 years for his role in the conspiracy and for his history of civil rights abuses, which Officer Peterson's testimony brings to light. Dozens of his previous cases are reopened, leading to the exoneration of 7 wrongfully convicted individuals. His name becomes a byword for police corruption, a cautionary tale taught at the academy. He loses his job, his pension, and the unearned respect he so desperately craved. The rot goes deeper. Judge Wallace is implicated in the ensuing investigation. It is revealed he took bribes from Vance for favorable rulings in over a dozen cases. He is impeached, arrested, and sentenced to 10 years. The police chief is forced to resign in disgrace, and the entire department is placed under a federal consent decree, a long and painful process of reform forced upon them from the outside. The heroes of the story find a different kind of justice. Sarah Jenkins, the young public defender, is hailed as a hero in her own right. Her steadfast belief in her client, even when all hope seemed lost, earns her national recognition. Evelyn Reed offers her a senior position at a new nonprofit legal foundation, a job with a 6-figure salary and a mandate to fight for the underdog. She accepts, leaving the overwhelmed public defender's office behind, but taking its spirit of righteous battle with her. Officer Ryan Peterson is initially ostracized by his fellow officers, but his bravery earns him a promotion from the new, reform-minded police chief. He becomes a lead trainer at the academy, teaching a new generation of officers about the importance of integrity and the poison of prejudice. And Marcus Thorne. The world finally learns his full story. Not just the story of his heroism in Afghanistan, but the story of who he is now. The media discovers that Marcus, after returning from the war and seeing the plight of his fellow veterans, used his family's quiet, old money inheritance to secretly establish one of the country's largest and most effective veterans' aid foundations. The Thorne Foundation. Evelyn Reed is not just his lawyer, she is the foundation's executive director. He is the silent, anonymous benefactor behind it all. He had the power to crush Vance from the very beginning. He could have made one phone call and ended the entire ordeal before it began. But he didn't. He chose to endure the humiliation, the lies, the attacks on his character and his honor. He chose to walk through the fire one more time. He did it to expose the rot in the system, to show the world what happens to the poor, the marginalized, the forgotten, every single day in courtrooms just like that one. He used his own case as a weapon, a spotlight to burn away the shadows. The massive civil settlement he wins from the city is donated in its entirety to his foundation, used to fund a new wing, the Ghost Center for Veterans Justice, dedicated to providing elite legal defense, free of charge, to veterans who have been failed by the system they swore to protect. Marcus Thorne remains a quiet man. He shuns the spotlight, refusing interviews and accolades. He finds his peace not in fame or recognition, but in the simple, quiet life he fought so hard to reclaim. 2 years later. The Thorne and Ghost Center for Veterans Justice is a beautiful building, all clean lines of glass and steel, a beacon of hope in the heart of the city. It stands on the ground where a corrupt, dilapidated courthouse once stood, the very same one where Marcus was nearly destroyed. It was torn down, a symbolic razing of the old, broken system. Inside, in a bright, airy conference room, Marcus stands before a group of young, eager lawyers. Sarah Jenkins is among them, now a confident and respected senior attorney, mentoring the new recruits. Marcus is no longer the ghost in the threadbare jacket. He wears a simple but well-fitting polo shirt and jeans. The weariness in his eyes has been replaced by a deep, settled calm. He looks whole. At his feet, as always, lies Ghost. The dog is older now, his muzzle flecked with gray, his movements a little slower. But his eyes are still bright, his devotion to Marcus absolute. He is a living legend, the center's beloved mascot and a constant reminder of what they are all fighting for. The people we represent, Marcus says to the young lawyers, his voice quiet but resonant, filling the room with its gentle authority, they will come to you with nothing. The system is designed to see them as nothing. It will count on their silence. It will count on their fear. It will count on them to break. He pauses, looking around the room, meeting the eyes of each lawyer. Your job is to be the one thing the system doesn't count on. You will be their voice. You will be their shield. You will be the proof that they are not nothing. You will show those who sit in judgment that the quietest man in the room can sometimes be the most dangerous, not because of what he might do, but because of what he has endured. He reaches down and strokes Ghost's head. The dog leans into his touch, content. The arrogance of power is a fragile thing. It builds its castles on the sand of prejudice and assumptions. It believes that strength is measured in volume, that worth is measured in wealth, that a man's character can be judged by the color of his skin or the frayed edges of his coat. But true strength is quieter. It is the resilience of a forgotten hero, the unwavering loyalty of a faithful dog, and the terrifying power of a truth whose time has come. Julian Vance learned that lesson in the smoldering ruins of his life. He learned that when you try to crush a man you know nothing about, you might just find yourself stomping on a landmine.